we're so used of our conditioning, and by like also in this kind of meetings, that is why we organize that we talk with each other. And today we had like a little conversation about like life and death, because we all go through those kind of two things there. And so it enriches me, and it enriches our team to make actually maybe the workshops that can give you even more insights into yourself, and about how you can actually change your mind about it. Maybe coming from fear into this kind of courage or finding purpose in the things you do. Most of the time we are so used of doing things that we find normal, and then we walk into the same problems every time. So I think especially therefore we sit together and we have fun, and you probably have seen Kitchen Talk, in which we have little subjects going on. And I think like the thing with Insight Holistic Cyprus is the main thing is that we let you know how we work and what we actually do, because you can say like, yeah, I do some training work, and we talk about spiritual growth and personal development, but what is it, and how do you approach it then, and what is the work you can do with us?
Mm-hmm.
So
if I may.
Go ahead.
The whole point, the key word is self-development, is where no coach or psychoanalyst or psychologist or anyone can tell you what to do, right? It's self-development. So we go and we organize workshops. You write so many books. We go and we organize some classes, breath work, where you can self-develop. So we just come together, we contemplate, and we look at the different perspectives and maybe find different perspectives, but then it's up to a person to self-develop.
Yeah, I think that was Olga telling this morning when you were reading my first book. Living a Loving Life?
Yes, but it was not my first book. I don't remember which one was first. But anyway, when I first time read it, in any of books which I read it, you can feel differently. So you read it and you find your own answer. You always say about that. And also at workshops, when I first time came at your workshop, I was thinking like, oh, so many coaches do this whole kind of stuff, and it's like they telling what to do and how to do, and it's like, who is that, like, why they tell me what to do, But I really stay here and do this, all what we're doing, because the main idea, it's the person will find the answers, and you just show different perspective of you, and the person like, I never thought about it, and it's so easy.
Yeah, the main thing also is like when people say like, I tell you what to do and I know the secret, and they give you a kind of like whole workbook how it works. Maybe it works for a while, but you have to make it your own, and that works. That only is the way that you can actually
and
really
develop. It feels differently when somebody tell you what to do. You can sometimes go with it, but at the end you doesn't feel fulfilled, and you doesn't.
Yeah.
It feels differently when you go with your own idea, and when you go somewhere because somebody telling you.
But it's like when you have a child and you constantly tell the child what to do, then it stays the child. When you actually let the child grow up, and that is like having his own experiences with things, then the other one can even better deal with life in the end and do it his own way, than that you constantly, after 30 years, still think that you have to guide the child.
And I also was thinking about the child, about the people who want answers from the coaches. They just want somebody tells them what to do.
Yeah.
So they don't want to take, full responsibility for their life to go there and do. They asking for.
But at that moment, you're not thinking, "Oh, I don't want someone tell me what to do because I don't want the responsibility."
Yeah.
You just want.
You just want help. You just want help.
And it's not like, oh, I'm like.
I know. You just want help, but at the end you like, you still doesn't find answers, because if somebody tell you answers, it's not your answer.
Yeah, but also like finding your own answer, that's a way of actually help.
Yeah.
But that's where how help comes, because sitting in the situation on your own, you wouldn't possibly see the whole picture. So sitting there with someone or with a group opens that brackets, and then we see. And it doesn't really matter if it's a workshop or one-on-one coaching or anything.
Yeah, but at the same time, what to do with, for example, you sit with one person and this person have his own ideas how it should be and his own perspective, not even perspective, prism. Yeah, prism. And then you get his prism and you doesn't see
a filter.
What to do with that.
How do you mean?
So for example, I have the problem and I come to
me,
to her, and I have also on her problems on top of my problems. You know what I mean? So I see on my situation through her prism, and then I start act differently, and I can change my life even worse, because on top my problem I get her problems.
Yeah, the guidance first is of course that you don't actually add another kind of problem to it. So when you come for a session to talk about things, you actually, your problem is central. Yeah, the way you think is central. So when you say to me from like, oh, I have a problem with that person, it feels not good, and I tell you, oh, I know this kind of feeling. My neighbor is doing the same thing, and I feel also not good about it. Yeah.
And then you just whole life thinking how terrible the person is.
Yeah, but then we actually have a conversation at the kitchen table, and there is no guidance there. There is this kind of exchange of how bad we live at that time, or how our feelings are. So, like, especially in the guidance, it's like that you let things be there, and you really like learn to listen, and that's the whole base of like all therapy is listening. Yeah, really knowing what is going on, otherwise you can't solve it. And that's also like self-development actually gives that kind of space there to yourself also, from like, okay.
Again, sorry, self-development. If you're coming to someone, for example, one-on-one session, and you're walking outside after the session and you're thinking, okay, I have now 2 neighbors to think about, you know, self-development, do I go back to that person? Or you come out of the session and you think, oh, phew, I feel better, I feel light, self-listening, okay, I'm gonna maybe come back for some more and like see how I can work through it. Self-development.
So it's actually creating more opportunities. It's really taking away the brackets in which we normally think. Yeah, the problem is the neighbor, and we don't like it. But when you actually see your own working in it, your way of acting with it, the way that you make it a problem, and that actually you only actually carry that backpack with the problem, and that you learn it's my problem. I take responsibility there. And I have the opportunity of thinking differently, because like in the training you learn to think in a different way. You get exercises in which you actually can see that it's easy to expand your mind. And sometimes.
I know I'm making it too long now, but it's not only going through a problem. It's not only going through intentional development. It's I have the responsibility not only to take care of myself, I have the responsibility to make it better, if you will. Like, I remember about a year ago we was recording this video and I was telling you, okay, I don't have a 5-year-old plan. I don't know where I'm gonna see myself in 5 years. I have now. You know, you kind of grow into it where you understand that if you don't have a plan, okay, it might be changing as we go, but like, it is good to have a plan. It is good to know where you're going. It is good to see like some kind of picture in front of you, like what is it I'm doing. So not only working through the problem and taking the responsibility for your problems, but also taking responsibility for your development and self growth.
Yeah.
What do I do with it? Yeah, okay, it's all nice and beautiful, but like, yeah.
Yeah, but it is like what you said, like we only have the moment now. And so that listening is really being in the moment now. It's like hearing what is going on right now. And there we can already start to actually to see maybe a different direction. And then that kind of goal, that kind of purpose that you give to it, is then really out of that kind of situation where you're now. Most problems that are discussed is about the past. Yeah, they had a problem with the family or the parents or the boss, or it's all about like what has happened, and of course otherwise you're not in the situation now, but we have to find the potential in this moment now, and also then the solution, how to move on. So yeah, I was preparing this, and we were thinking about like also to discuss life and death, not maybe with you, but okay, we discussed a little bit, and we talked about time and regression, and I was thinking this week also when I was writing it down, from like how arrogant is it to talk about the beginnings of time, and how important is it for most people to talk about it. Yeah, but when we actually see that we in the past we create things, and then we in the present moment we deal with it or not, and that we also have then a kind of outcome in the future. Yeah, maybe then it's sometimes good to realize from what do I do now, and then of course you come to that kind of moment of time in your life, like you say, like do I waste my time? All kinds of subjects that we discuss in the workshops that we are making. And sometimes we talk, we have like an easy conversation with a lot of food and animals going around. But the main thing I think is inside Holistic Cyprus is that we have the intention of making this world a bit better, maybe. Better in the sense that we give our intentions of love and interest and passion into it, I think. And there's not a kind of, we have to do this. This is all like a choice of the three of us. I'm sure about that. And so therefore you find every week a meditation that is kindly prepared by you.
Two of us.
And you see actually like that when we have a program that we are all involved, and that we sometimes actually make like a little bit of a video out of it. And I hope that you will join us and be with us inside Holistic Cyprus.
Yeah, and also, you're saying we're doing that to make it work better, and it's like, I think everyone saying about that, like, we want to make work better and better, but how? And I was asking myself one time, like, why do we need this? I mean, like, self-development in general. It's like, it's so complicated. You need to go deep, and you need to sort of find out why your mind makes things so complicated, why you feel on this way, and sometimes you're like, oh, why we just can't live and don't care about that. But then I found out if you change this, if you change some your bad habits, if you go deeper and maybe something stop worrying you at all, your life become easier, and the way you speak with people and communicate with people become much easier. And
is it easier or more in a deeper way?
And yeah, and it feels differently.
Because normally people actually will not say it's easier.
But in general, for example, if somebody think like everyone want to make work better, and like how? And you see that if everyone will be okay with themselves, it will be no war, it will be no problems. I mean, like, okay, we still have problems because it's world of duality, I should say, but I think it will be much easier to communicate if everyone will be more or less okay with themselves.
I think that it's true that when you are peaceful, that you don't actually like bring the kind of the bad things in this world. But being always peaceful is also not the way, I think.
He doesn't know how good it is if
yeah,
you're peaceful.
yeah. Plus, we still have this human thing.
Yes.
Still that kind of like being upset about things, and so also in that kind of self-development, you learn better about yourself, where you are triggered by, and how to deal with that then. And I always actually bring that in. So certainly also right now, it's a matter of like dealing with that kind of self-forgiveness. Like really understanding when we talk about self-development and spiritual growth, that we recognize that we are not that body and mind, and that we are not actually that human being. We live human lives, but we are spirit. And when we no longer identify with this body, that we call death then, we still do until death. And I think that part of self-forgiveness is then very important, because we find it so easily to have feelings and emotions, and therefore actions and reactions. And taking responsibility for that is an ongoing, everyday thing. And so therefore, like learning to accept yourself, and in other words also to love yourself, is more important than anything else. Yeah, because at that time you have your best friend, you have the God within, you have your answers within, and then you can deal with a lot of things in your life. Yeah. And of course it's still nice sometimes to talk with someone, and I think that's also one of the things that we see in groups meetings, that people actually want to share this kind of things with each other. When we do open meetings, then it's really like a possibility for a lot of people to hear how other people do that, or what their path is, and how they actually think about it.
That's true.
And that's the most important, that we share it also. It's not something that you do and you sit in your cave and you develop yourself. It's definitely like with the people around us. But we also have to realize that what we have around us is also a kind of like, we are a magnet for that. We also represent ourselves in it. So when something happens, and you can really ask yourself this, what makes now that this person is right away this moment in my life? What does it tell me? The questions of like, what do I learn from it? And not to answer in anger, but to answer with a kind of like calmness then. And I think that is one of the goals that we have, that we bring you to the more wiser questions that you can give yourself, I think.
And also about the sharing, I was also thinking one time, it's like they say, as one time in the kitchen talk, you're saying like, if you provide everything for yourself, if you're okay with yourself, it's one thing. But I think also, like if we think in the way with energy, so if you're okay with yourself and you're not sharing your whatever you have, let's say energy, if you don't share, it's like
you stop the process of the flow.
It's like the bolota.
Swamp.
Yes, it's like the swamp. It's goes and it's like just stay. If you share with people, if you just give, it's like a river. If you share and do it everything together, it's like ocean, and you can make and do much more better the stuff and develop everything if it's like ocean with everyone. As you say, one drop of the ocean. And if you stay drop, you can, I don't know, space.
Evaporate.
Yeah.
Be the ocean.
Yeah. So about the time.
The perception of time can be very different. Time is also about ourselves being present in this world. Because actually in eternity, There is no time. It's infinite. And I think like that is also the beginning of times, that we say it started then 1500 for Christ, and what time? Yeah, I think it always have been, but we can't with the mind actually like overlook that kind of always. Yeah, it's also a perception of the mind what we see there. I think it has been always, and always is too much for the mind. It's always very, I think like in a way arrogant to know what time is and what life is and what death is. We are curious about it, but we don't know what it is. Yeah, and then there are quite interesting books written about, like there's also this book from, maybe for people to read, from Stephen Hawking. I think a lot of people know this. Asking the difficult questions, and but when you actually ask it yourself, the perception of yourself about time and death and what happens, I think that is like leading your life in a certain direction. The more you know that you don't know. That's my perception. The more I dive into it, the more I think like, okay, so in the end it's for everybody different. Yeah, I can't talk for anyone else. I can only give my own opinion about it, and therefore I'm saying like it's maybe not an answer, but it's maybe a guidance at that time when we discuss these kind of things. We definitely will come back in a kind of workshop like that, and then you can say like, what is the purpose then to talk about it, or what is the purpose to have this workshop about death, time, regression, life. I think it's so close to ourselves. It's actually like what we make out of it. So I think it's very important to sometimes to see your own visions on it. When you don't have a vision on it, you're also lost. Yeah, and it's like what you said, like when we have a kind of goal in 5 years' time. Yeah, that's not about like, okay, it should be going accordingly and it should be perfect there. But it's about like that in time we also actually bring our perception out. So we can actually bring our power out in like aligning with something, synchronizing with something. And I think that's the most important in time. Because actually like what we said about like you can't always stay the coach for someone. It's about in the aligning. It means also that when you see something that is possible and you never actually think that you can make it also possible, or that you actually are capable of being the possibility, then you also stop your own development. And that's what we want you to realize in a certain way. That when you have a goal, and that is also what actually most of the time is taught in coaching lessons, is like when you do this, you get that, and when you do this, you get that, and but that in a way that you are the one who's constantly initiating something there. You're the one who's constantly like your own guide there. Can I keep up then that kind of motivation? When I, in 5 years' time, wants to earn like 10 million or something, how do I do that? But also, can I keep up then the promises to myself? Because actually, you're the only tool in this whole process. And you see people easily give up. Because actually, like the discussion we have is about like, when you follow someone's vision, it's still someone's vision. It's not your vision. The moment that it becomes your vision and you're really aligned with it, then you also know the possibilities out of it. But it's a question that most people don't ask, because they think that, okay, well, I get the book, I get the manual, and now I know how it works, and they're disappointed in a year that it still not works, and then they try again. But really actually keeping that up, and that is, I think, inside Holistic Cyprus, is that I want you to keep it up, and I will also actually energize you to keep it up by being there, but also to give you like little tools to it. And that's the tools from like, when you use this, it works. about the little tool of you are important. You're the only one who can make it work. Not to give you a guilt feeling, but really actually learning to see your own importance. And that's the most important thing that you can do. Learning to see your own importance.
That's true. And also, one time I realized, I don't know, but you only one person with whom you burn and with whom you die. And it's like, you can, for example, find a perfect coach or perfect partner for your life, but whatever happened, and this person doesn't know and doesn't feel the same way. Okay, you can feel on a similar way, but you only one person who see and feel everything. So it's like you really need to make a friend with yourself, because you will live. You can't just cut it and
you can't escape from that person.
Yes, you can try, but then you will have explore. I mean, like, it will be like, you can imagine live with somebody to have a fight with, and it's like you even can go in another room. You still be there, and you really is this. When some you also say sometimes, because they say you should do. Like a lot of people say you should, but it's this kind of stuff you should do, which one really can help you, and you can't escape from that.
Yeah, it's about like what the shoot is most time not so helpful, but
yeah, because from the childhood we like get used of we should, and it's usually like it's so boring, but you can make it interesting. Even if it's should, you still you can make it interesting, and you also can think like, I make it interesting, but you can make it as interested as uninteresting.
So it's like what you say is like, okay, we actually bring that kind of new vision, and then we give you a new perspective, actually, what we do. Okay. So be there with us.
I like it how she doesn't be there.